In today's video, we're back with some updated NHL trade rumors with the information coming from the Saturday Headlines segment on Hockey Night in Canada's Saturday night broadcast. Today, we have some updated info on players like Gustav Nyquist, as well as Jesse Puljujarvi, the Edmonton Oilers. We have the latest on Artemi Panarin, the latest what's going on with Ottawa's pending UFAs, as well as the Calgary Flames. We'll discuss all of that coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned, there was all kinds of information that came out of the Saturday Headlines segment last night on Hockey Night in Canada, so let's dive right into it here as we have a lot to cover. I want to get started with the Edmonton Oilers and the potential situation that might be arising with Jesse Puljujarvi. Now, he's a player we've talked about on and off this season. Obviously, you know, the former 4th overall draft choice a few years ago hasn't quite panned out to be the player they were hoping he would be so far. But at the same time, he's still young, and there's a lot of, internal decisions on, do they move him? Do they continue being patient? Or what should be the plan here with this player? And in my opinion, the Oilers haven't had the greatest track record with developing players as well. So you can't help but wonder if he would be able to get off to a fresh start and really rejuvenate things off with another team. However, the Oilers certainly have made some recent deals here trying to rejuvenate some cap space and move forward here, not only trying to make the playoffs this year, but for the future as well. They recently traded goalie Cam Talbot. Obviously, that frees up a fair bit of cap space. And we saw another minor trade yesterday where they picked up Sam Gagner in exchange for Ryan Spooner. Of course, Spooner's moved around quite a bit, and he was the latest player that came into the Oilers here not that long ago. Has been playing in the minors after clearing waivers. Gagner's been playing in the minors as well for Vancouver, but he was loaned to the Toronto Marlies so he could play closer to home. And he was having a fantastic American Hockey League season with the Marlies. He was probably their 3rd or 4th best player. And when he was called up to Vancouver earlier, it actually looked pretty decent as well. So Gagner goes back to Edmonton, where he played for a long time. Spooner gets another crack at an NHL shot over in Vancouver. But back to Jesse Puljujarvi here. It's kind of been revealed lately that between Puljujarvi and his agent, they seem to be frustrated with this situation and lack of development, lack of playing time. He very well might be going back down to the American Hockey League. And even though the Oilers have indicated that they want to be patient with this player and probably don't want to trade him, we might be getting to a situation where he might want out. And it seems to be getting close to that, where he might be requesting a trade. So they are apparently open to moving him for the right price tag, but it's still believed that that price tag might be more than what teams are willing to pay. Obviously, based on his slow development, his value is kind of low. But of course, because of his potential, the Oilers still want a fair bit of a fairly high asking price. So we'll see what happens. But it's certainly a player to keep your eye on, and might not be a big shocker if it gets to the point where Puljujarvi asked for a trade out of Edmonton. But we'll stay tuned on that for right now. Now, jumping over to the Calgary Flames, their provincial rival here, obviously having a fantastic season, back in 1st place in the Pacific Division. They have some questions on how they're going to handle their trade deadline here leading into the 2019 playoffs. Based on the information discussed on the Saturday Headlines segment, it's believed that they very well might look to acquire a veteran defenseman, which is a different strategy than we've discussed before, mainly because outside of their top 4D, they've had a lot of younger defensemen on that backside playing those 5-6 spots, and they would like to have some more experience on the back end, so that very well might be something that they go after. They haven't been linked to any specific defenseman here as of yet. But the other big question mark in Calgary is the health of James Neal. Obviously, we saw him get a high stick in the face here just a few days ago, lost several teeth. Not quite clear exactly how long he's going to be out of the lineup. And even though James Neal's numbers are down and certainly hasn't contributed in the ways that he was hoping to this season, it's still, an experienced forward getting into the playoffs. He's been to the finals numerous times. James Neal's a quality player who can bounce back for the playoffs at the right time here. So they very well might go after a forward. They've certainly been linked to, like I mentioned the other day, they appeared to have interest in Mark Stone should he become available. But at this point, we don't really have any direct links between those two teams talking. But a player of that magnitude is kind of what they've been looking at. But it looks as though Calgary might have multiple decisions to make. And as I mentioned in the video the other day about their goaltending situation, depending on how they feel about Smith and Riddick, they might look for an upgrade there as well. Although I think that it's more likely that we see an upgrade on defense or potentially an extra forward at it. I think they're easier, lower risk moves here. But at the same time, if they can trade Mike Smith for a higher quality goaltender that's going to strengthen that position as well, it very well might be something that we see the Flames make multiple moves here. But hard to say exactly what their plans are, but that is what is being speculated right now in the rumor mill about the Calgary Flames. Now, jumping over and touching on Artemi Panarin, we don't have a lot more information. Basically, it's still status quo. It's believed he is not going to sign with anybody. He's definitely going to be a free agent on July the 1st. But a team that was mentioned in the Saturday headline segment that likely is showing interest right now is the Dallas Stars. Now, as many of you likely recall, earlier this year, there was the big statement that came out from CEO Jim Lites kind of blasting his top players, Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, about their poor play. And he certainly used his fair choice of curse words in that statement. Many deemed it to be unprofessional, but it does appear to kind of have gotten through, especially with Tyler Seguin. He's really been playing much, much better, and the team as a whole has had a fairly decent stretch of hockey since that time. They've gotten themselves into a playoff spot, but with all the logjam in the Western Conference, it's certainly by no means a guarantee that they get in. But although I must say things are looking relatively decent for the Dallas Stars, but the St. Louis Blues have kind of crept up and caught them here, moving into that number 3 spot in the division. So certainly things are not a guarantee, but apparently they have shown interest in Panarin with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Although, like many teams, the asking price might prove to be too high, but it is believed they'd like to add a dynamic scoring forward to really boost their secondary scoring up front. Obviously, that's one of their biggest issues, like many of the teams we've talked about looking at the deadline, is that secondary scoring. A lot of these teams have one big top line that can produce at a high rate, and after that, the drop-off rate is significant, and they're just not getting the support from the other line. So keep your eye on the Dallas Stars. Wouldn't be a shocker to see Jim Nill make a big move. He's been known for it in the past, and it's been a little while since he's made a big trade. So we'll see if they can get themselves in a fairly solid spot here and play some decent hockey over the next week or so before the deadline on the 25th. Wouldn't be surprised if he at least inquires on Panarin. But again, like I said, the asking price might prove too high, and he may go another route to one of the other bigger names that are potentially available here. Another player to keep your eye on as well as Detroit Red Wings forward Gustav Nyquist. I mentioned a few weeks back, he's quietly having a pretty solid season in Detroit. Even though the team's not doing exceptionally well, he certainly is producing at a good rate. He's got lots of experience, he's been around a while, and on an expiring contract here, but he does have a full no move clause as well. So it's completely unclear right now based on the insiders if he would be willing to waive, and if so, for what teams. But it is believed that the Red Wings are getting a lot of interest. There's a lot of teams that feel like he could be a good, second, third line player to really boost their secondary scoring. As I mentioned, there's many teams kind of in that boat that are like that middle range teams in the NHL looking to kind of boost themselves up for the playoff. So I do think it's a pretty good possibility the Red Wings get some pretty decent looking offers here, that they're certainly going to approach Nyquist about possibly waiving. It's believed that they have asked for a list of teams he would consider waiving to, but it's not quite clear if he's provided that yet or who might be on it. So unclear, but certainly a player generating a lot of interest, which of course leads us lastly here to the Senators, of course drawing tons of interest. They seem to dominate the media lately, and what's going to happen with Stone, Duchesne, Dzingel, even Cody Cece's name's been thrown out there lately. And right now it's believed that the Senators are still working hard to sign their players. They want to keep them, especially Mark Stone is believed that they're making an extra push here in a number of days leading up to the deadline to get him signed. It's believed that right now the sticking point and the reason that contracts have not been agreed to is not so much on the money, but more so on the structure and the signing bonuses. As we've seen, some other players on bigger market teams like Toronto, like for example, the Austin Matthews contract was like 94% signing bonus, which I think is a little crazy. It's going to be a major issue in the next CBA negotiations. However, when you see big star players getting that type of contract, even though some of these guys that we're talking about here might not be quite at that level, they do expect to have, a fairly decent sized chunk of it be in signing bonus to kind of make sure, especially with the lockout potentially looming here in the next year or two, they want like a lockout proof contract. And if their owners aren't willing to pony up to provide that money up front, then that certainly doesn't give them what they're looking for. So that seems to be the sticking point, but they are engaging extra hard with Mark Stone's camp to try to get him signed. As I mentioned before, Winnipeg was a team that was linked to him, showing a heavy interest. Of course, the Senators were just in Winnipeg on the weekend here. It was believed that we saw Pierre Dorion and Kevin Cheveldayoff having conversations as well at the arena during practice, which led to many people speculating. And then last night at the game, Jets fans broke out in a "We Want Stone" chant briefly too early in the first period, I believe it was. So certainly the people of Winnipeg are quite open to bringing on Stone. The way the Jets have been playing lately, they could certainly use some kind of a boost in their forward group, I do believe. Not sure exactly who they'd be willing to give up, though. I think their asking price would be really, really high. And the Jets have kind of done really well over the years of drafting, developing, and kind of guarding their future here. So we'll see what happens, but it is a team that to keep your eye on. But outside of Stone and their efforts to re-sign him right now, it is believed that they are kind of engaging teams around Matt Duchesne. And it seems like if they can only keep one of the two, they're kind of pushing harder for Stone. But then again, this story seems to change on a pretty much daily basis on which one's more likely to go, which one's more likely to stay. Are they both willing to go? They're both willing to stay. Like, it's just a revolving door of information out of the NHL insiders when it comes to these players. So it's really hard to say exactly what's what, because Mark Stone's really done a great job of keeping the whole negotiation process here quiet and private. So we really don't know for sure exactly what's what, but time will tell here. Time's a ticking. We're 8 days away from the NHL deadline, and the Senators, amongst many other teams here, have some really hard decisions they need to make as they prepare for their futures. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on all the latest NHL trade rumors down in the comment section. We can continue the conversation. I do think we could see one of the biggest NHL trade deadlines in recent history here, with a lot of big names potentially being on the move. All kinds of enticing things here to discuss and think about as we approach the deadline, so stay tuned for plenty more updates as we approach February the 25th deadline day. If you're new to the channel here, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up before you go. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.